set on my end. So let's go ahead and kick this into gear. All right. So as always, good morning. Welcome to another day in the markets. And as always, as we enter into our Thursday session, we'll just go ahead and say that on October 21st, 2021, we are looking at a market that has, in the sense of the index for the SPX, made a full 100% reversal. So we've seen a lot of volatility over the past couple of weeks, both to the downside upon losing trend and our eventual recovery back to all-time highs. Now, just like always, we're going to take a look at the SPX on this Thursday's session due to the fact that we always like to start the week drawing out the expected move. And what the expected move gives us is a sense of how far this market can move in either direction. We know where the market opens on that Monday pre-market, and we also get a sense of where risk is being defined in regards to option pricing and volatility. Now, the reason this is so interesting this week is last week, we had a fairly expansive expected move. The volatility had been high. It hadn't necessarily been crushed down after all of the selling pressure we saw. And the market was able to recover and test the top side of the expected move last week. That was, of course, with our technical analysis where we were seeing the market giving signs of a possible breakout, basically getting away from the downtrend and starting to see a possible shift in both bullish momentum and also sentiment, basically getting us back above moving averages and starting to see a bit of, I would say, relief in regards to the underlying conditions that led to the selling. Now, what's so interesting about this week is we did see a bit of a withdrawal of the expected move. We were looking at about a 61-point expected move for the week. And if you see where we ended up yesterday, we have tested the top side of our expected move. So as we look at this and as we continue to reiterate, the expected move is not something like support or resistance. It shouldn't be thought of in that way. It's simply where the market is in its happy place. Basically, the market in between this range doesn't really have to do a lot in regards to hedging activity. Everything is good, everything is normal, and the market has priced this in to some degree. So as long as we're staying within those bounds, you will see volatility either remain fairly stagnant or simply sort of oscillate between maybe a little bit of a significant low and a significant high throughout the week. The volatility of the market usually will come in whenever we start to see breaches of these expected moves. And since we have some price levels to interpret, I would argue that as the market has come back to all-time highs, noting that in the SPX, our all-time high was about 45.45. We did achieve that yesterday, albeit not going to give those 5 extra points any room. That's definitely an all-time high test. But we're also at this edge of expected move. So if the market wishes to sort of remain in its happy place, we really don't have to do anything else to the upside. We've kind of hit our goal. And as long as we're staying either here or just sort of see a fade back down, then we're really in a good spot in regards to the option market. There's no hedging activity, and basically it doesn't necessarily mean it's a short from this level, but we don't usually want to see much more upside from the fact of this expected move. If we do see a breach, however, that's when things start to change. Now, we only have 2 days left on this weekly session. And if the market is to see a breach, i.e. something like a larger earnings release, kind of tipping the balance to the upside, that's when we get what's often referred to as dynamic hedging. Essentially, all of the firms that are providing liquidity to the option market via selling calls and puts to retail or other institutional clients, they are market makers. They are the ones that keep the market liquid, they keep the market fair, and they provide liquidity for all of us to enjoy. Whenever the market breaks away from these critical risk levels, firms often will have to hedge because they are carrying, to some degree, a bit of directional bias and risk in selling calls and puts to other clients. You can imagine that over the past couple of weeks, there has likely been a lot of put buying in the market as people were very bearish over those past couple of weekly downside sessions. A lot of that, of course, has been alleviated because this momentum is in some way facilitated by a short squeeze. A lot of people have basically bailed on their bearish thesis, and we're seeing the result of that in regards to how quick this recovery has been, along with the speed of it back to test all-time highs. Basically no pullbacks, very much trend day after trend day, and really haven't seen much in the way of a pivot. Once again, though, if we do see a breach, more of something that I would say is more of a binary event, whether it be earnings, whether it be some new sort of black swan news event these next 2 days, if we tip those scales, dynamic hedging is likely what will carry this market throughout the rest of the week to the upside. Essentially, all of the puts that have potentially been sold to retail clients, any firm that is delta negative in regards to, or sorry, delta positive in regards to selling puts, they have sort of a long bias in the market. They will have to hedge their risk by essentially covering their short puts. And usually the way that this happens is they go out and will facilitate the upside move in the market by covering the directional bias of their position. So we've talked about this a few times. I won't go into too much detail as to the mechanics of it, but basically be aware that we are on that happy place edge. We're basically teetering where the market should be. And the most likely scenario from this point forward is to remain within this range, basically to kind of settle somewhere between this area. An alternate thesis, or the opposite of that higher probability event, is to see the breach and to expect a very dynamic and probably aggressive upside move over the next couple of sessions. Now, I started with the SPX because we did test all-time highs. That's going to be slightly different inside of the SPY. You'll note that the SPY's all-time high is about 454. And if we dig down, the previous session is a couple of points away from that. That's often due to the fact that this is not a one-to-one correlation in regards to those numerical values. And additionally, the SPY does pay out a dividend. So the two of those factors will basically kind of skew those values slightly. And oftentimes when you're looking at the SPY, you're kind of just getting a sense of the technicals, and you have the additional benefit of volume. Another way to look at this is you can pull up the ES futures, and the same sort of idea applies. This is not going to be a one-to-one to the SPX, but there are some very close to equivalent price levels that you wish to evaluate. And in the regards of what we do every morning, this is definitely good enough. So we're basically back where we started. The market has made that sort of full recovery, but as always, this is not true across the board. The NASDAQ continues to be a bit of a laggard. Once again, not necessarily testing all-time highs, and understandably seeing the NASDAQ back in time, this one usually takes a bit of an additional, I would say, a bit of additional assistance to retest its highs. We've seen larger corrections like this before, and while this does have great momentum back to the upside, we can see back tests or basically just chop. And that's often due to what we're seeing in both bonds and notes. We continue to sort of reiterate that the 10-year notes are seeing some of the lowest price levels in months. We have additional selling, basically additional downside here. And this is, of course, bringing our interest rates higher and higher, putting additional pressure on tech stocks. So as we look at this market, the thing that's going to provide maybe that pullback or maybe just potentially back testing of the market is likely going to be the NASDAQ. If things sort of continue in the direction that they're going, the NASDAQ continues to have that pressure. We're also seeing a couple of earnings for stocks that provide high market cap for the market as a whole, but specifically the NASDAQ. We've talked about Tesla over the past week. We noted that Tesla had a very important technical level, the highest weekly close that it's ever seen at approximately 880. And this has so far been the tipping point for this strong momentum push at this time. And this, of course, was both an intraday short, a very simple sort of technical level to use as your risk, along with an area to define where profit taking may occur, given that the earnings have been released. And so far, this has not been bid much higher. Worth noting as well that Tesla had about a 40-point expected move on the week. So as we entered earnings, Tesla was closing at about 865, and a 40-point move higher or lower basically gave us an idea of where the option market saw the volatility of that event. Basically, if we did see a bullish reaction looking at about 900 to 905, and then a bearish reaction brings us back into the 825 anywhere to possibly 800, where there was a lot of open interest on that series. But so far, Tesla has really done very little into its earnings, which means we may see a bit more profit taking throughout the week, once again providing a bit of downside pressure for the NASDAQ and the SPY as a whole. We've talked about Netflix as well. That one's sort of gone, past and gone, but once again, less of a bullish reaction, more of just a profit taking to sort of fade at this time. Now, we also got a few additional stocks, some that maybe have a bit more of an intraday opportunity, the likes of IBM selling off after its earnings. And with IBM, I would say that there are some important levels to maybe consider as we enter into these lower ranges. One of which is going to be this gap. Now, arguably, this gap has been filled already. Therefore, a lot of people tend to ignore these price levels. But in the sense of volume profile, if I'm simply looking at the price near this range, there's a bit of a volume sort of vacuum, a volume pocket. And when we look at where the price can inflect, I often will refer to these pockets as poor areas of support and resistance, essentially meaning that price can move relatively quickly through them so long as the momentum is dictating it at that time. Additionally, whenever you traverse through these volume profile pockets, sort of the gaps of the volume profile, often look at where higher volume nodes are positioned within, and that can provide those intraday to maybe even swing opportunities, so long as you get the confirmation needed to set up your trade. So as IBM is coming into this area, and as we did have that bearish push, I believe IBM was predicting anywhere from like a $5 to $6 expected move. That has been achieved so far, which means at this point we might see a bit of a sideways to possible relief rally into the next couple of sessions. So just kind of watch this area. We are seeing a bit of a reaction near this low, and you can see that it is very close to that gap low at about 134.08. I think I marked it maybe a cent or two off at this time. We also had the likes of some other companies, maybe not important ones for the market as a whole, but mostly looking at companies that actually moved throughout their earnings. CXX, a bit of a legacy sort of railroad and transportation company. This one did see a bit of an upside bid into its earnings. And more notably, it is making a new all-time high. It won't be shown on this chart, but we are opening somewhere above this 35 print. We have stocks like Crocs, which has been a very strong performer pretty much since COVID lows. We've seen I would say this has been basically a monthly chart without a pullback. There has been almost no consolidation on this chart. But worth mentioning that we were putting in a lot of profit-taking highs on a very extended upside move. And as we shift into a lower time frame, we can see that that profit-taking was leading up into earnings. And as we shift into the earnings reaction, this is what Crocs is doing in the pre-market. So intraday opportunities here, we are likely to see these on the gappers list. If we do not, however, be it with volume or additional filters, these are stocks that you may want to consider for today's trade. Let's see. Trying to remember the next topic here. Continuing to watch IWM, thesis remains the same here. Very compressed area and range. We had a bit of a conversation yesterday about some different indicators that you can look to see when this entire index may be ready to move. And one that I like to monitor is often the TTM squeeze. It's basically a combination of Bollinger Bands and the Keltner channel, and it tries to sort of aggregate that information into a very simple indicator. Essentially, you're looking at whether the momentum is bullish or bearish, often with a histogram look very similar to a MACD histogram, but also whether or not the channels are compressed, and that will be seen by these red dots here. The longer this compression occurs and the moment in time when this starts to break, basically when it starts to release that energy, you can think of this as a possible momentum shift. And releasing of that energy often takes an equivalent amount of time as the squeeze took to form. So when you look at the daily, you can see that we're basically forming about a 15-day squeeze on this entire index. And what's more interesting is if I bring it to a weekly, this index has been in a weekly squeeze for an extended period of time. So the idea here is that this index may be ready to move very aggressively as we're getting to that sort of breaking point in regards to the amount of compression in this entire index. That said, these have not fired quite yet, but as the lower time frames begin to trigger, something like the daily would be the sign that things are starting to move, then the weekly is more likely to trigger in those following momentum move shifts. So definitely something to watch. Been basically mentioning this as an opportunity. We've had plenty of time to prepare sort of a game plan regardless of your directional bias. And the understanding here is that things are starting to look as if they are going to trigger bullish, with the understanding that the market as a whole, the SPY has made a full recovery and the NASDAQ is a bit of a laggard, which means we might see more outperformance in our growth to small market cap names, especially when you think about what's included in the IWM. As we bring up our market watch and just our heat map, we want to note that the IWM has a lot of weighting in both lower regional financials, very beneficial sector in higher interest rate environments, and even healthcare, which, as we look back at our healthcare sector, has broken bullish. Basically, the past 2 sessions has been facilitated by bullish activity in healthcare. And that's, of course, with our other strong sectors, financials breaking to new highs, energy continuing to be in sort of a bullish upside channel and continuing to move aggressively to the upside. And then our consumer discretionaries helped out additionally with Tesla's bid into earnings. Tech, of course, is the bit of the laggard, still not necessarily testing all-time highs, but hasn't been underperforming amidst a bullish recovery. So last but not least, worth mentioning that we did see lots of celebratory activity inside of Bitcoin and the crypto market space as a whole. Bitcoin, of course, making a new all-time high on yesterday's session, and the likes of additional altcoins seeing some of that bullish activity perpetuate throughout. It's worth mentioning that in the case of Ethereum, just looking at the futures chart here, we're basically testing all-time highs. And while this is going to be some higher volatility in the short term, with Bitcoin breaking out, as long as we continue to sort of backtest and hold these upper levels, we can sort of anticipate that the altcoins will also look to perform. As yesterday, as we were breaking out, essentially every altcoin was starting to see a bullish breakout across the board. And that could have been seen in pretty much any of your favorite large market cap names. Solana, a lot of people are interested in this project. ADA, bit of a laggard overall, but still seeing some potential volatility. You can see the volatility is a bit correlated with what occurred in Ethereum near all-time highs. And then some potential leaders in the space, BNB. This, of course, one of our higher market cap names. I believe this one actually reclaimed its third place in terms of market cap overall. And DOT, yes, of course, DOT. Very interesting. Is that all the price history I have? There we go. Looking at Binance here. Coming into its all-time highs. So basically, celebrations all around in the crypto space. A lot of back and forth price action over the past couple months. We've seen everything from China bans all the way to the El Salvador adoption of Bitcoin. Lots of fear, lots of greed throughout recovery phases, large liquidation crashes. And at the end of the day, we are sitting at price levels that we have not seen in the past 6 months, which is, of course, our all-time highs. We will see how far this can go and whether or not we're going to see larger sort of pullbacks and back tests of key levels. But ultimately, we have made that 100% recovery. And similar to the SPY, we're seeing that bullish momentum really carry forward very quickly, as Bitcoin really didn't have much in the way of consolidation throughout the most recent rally. You can see that as we were rising, we were basically making higher highs and higher lows throughout, a couple of pullback opportunities, and then most notably, in my opinion, this very specific trend line marking highs and lows throughout this entire phase and cycle, and the eventual sort of test and breach of this area. So lots of bullish signals across the board. I do expect additional volatility as altcoins begin to test their highs. We're seeing it with Ethereum currently. And with that volatility comes opportunity, both intraday and swing. Now, as we look back into our equities market, and as we wrap up today's session, there are plenty of ways for us to gain that exposure as equities traders. We do have the new Bitcoin Futures ETF labeled BITO, or ticker name BITO. There are more ETFs on the docket to be released very soon. One is potentially going to be listed this Friday, if not next week. And we're likely to see more offerings throughout the remainder of this year, as usually when one is accepted, more start to become available. If you're looking for a trading vehicle, consider BITO, as it has been a fairly decent and liquid option in the equity space. Also consider our miners, but keep in mind that some of these miners have been already bid very significantly. I would say that the likes of Mara, we want to be careful of maybe considering buying this near its all-time highs. We do have some potential downside on a pullback here, and Mara is at least testing its shorter term trends. So just kind of be aware that profit taking can occur in these heavily bid up names as we see rotation into beaten down names. The likes of SOS yesterday, as Bitcoin was testing all-time highs, had a very significant rally. And while it may not look like it in regards to the price, we're talking about 50% appreciation from low to high. So it does appear as if some of the profits are starting to move back into riskier companies, as we are seeing euphoria and sort of the greed, the bullish behavior of this market return on the test of all-time highs. Additionally, I would say that other miners and offerings are out there. Stocks like Hive have been brought to my attention. This one has seen about 3 to 4 days of upside. A lot of people have been liking Hut. This one, of course, testing its recent highs. And then sort of our normal stocks, our normal offerings, Riot Blockchain, and then Coin, not necessarily a Bitcoin miner, but more transactions, more fees being accumulated through people bidding in the space, and retail sort of getting back into the game. Coin seeing a lot of that appreciation in the past couple of days. Very notable test here. We are back at the low of the IPO day offering. So keep that in mind, as we are seeing some volume decline. Just because something is very bullish into a level does not mean that a pullback can be significant. So watch out for this technical level. This is our highest volume daily candle, so it's worth respecting in the shorter term intraday timeframes. So with that said, my name is Jared. This is Engineering the Markets. Hopefully you've been having some fun out there with the market, not only recovering to its all-time highs, but a lot of different areas and spaces seeing some bullish activity. There's been opportunity in solar. We've seen that with TAN and across different names in this space. Move it back to a daily to show that bullish activity. We've seen decent recoveries across the board. Tesla, our communication name, starting to see some bullish activity. The likes of financials and energy have been very bullish throughout. And then throughout all of this are going to be some potential fade plays. But as we've seen, stepping in front of momentum is very challenging. We do need to see the market give us clear signs for those shorts and basically taking a shot at a potential back test. But until then, we will wait and see what the rest of the week gives. We'll go ahead and call it here and stay tuned for pre-market prep. And as always, trade safe. We'll talk more on Monday. Have a great weekend.
couple of old men doing the old school pre-market show.
Hello. All right. So, hello formally then to everybody in the room and on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, just give me a little, maybe a thumbs up. Let me know if you can hear us properly and everything looks good.
There's your thumbs up.
Appreciate that. All right. Yes, Carlos is away today. So, Norm and I are covering. I'm doing my best here with the technology, and Norm, I'm going to lean on you heavily. So let's start with that right away as I hand it over to you for the pre-market pulse. I know that we just did the Jared stuff. Anything you wanted to add?
No, I mean, Jared does such a great rundown every morning. Everybody, let's go on YouTube, give him a thumbs up. It really does help out with the algorithm, people finding the channel and such. We appreciate it. No, I mean, we're just we've been strong here after some time of my charts aren't working correctly. Give me just a second. What the world's going on? Apparently, the SPY has only been active for 2 weeks. That's the most I can get out of it. So, I mean, we're been bullish. There you go, right up against all-time highs. We'll see how it performs. So, today we've got jobless claims just came out. Have not seen them yet, frankly. Trying to get the show going. And continuing claims, Philly Fed Index, and then we've got existing home sales at 10. So that's the important stuff. Hasn't really done much to the market. We'll see how it goes.
All right. Excellent. My goodness, how does Carlos do this every morning? Okay. Okay. All right. Don't worry, guys. We'll get there. All right, well, with that, let's take a look at our gappers list. Hey, look, good news for me, not a big gappers list. So the market does seem to be a little, a little lethargic this morning. Not big volume happening so far on the SPY, nor any of the stuff that I typically watch. And the gappers list is pretty modest. So we might be able to get through everything that's gapping so far and go from there. So let's start with the thing at the top of the list, which is TSC. That's not a ticker that's familiar to me. What is this? Tri-State Capital. What is this?
Yeah,
what the hell is this?
It's a regional bank. They had earnings last night.
Okay.
So
yeah, wow, 30%. That's a big bump up for a bank.
It is a massive bump, isn't it?
Look at their daily chart. Like for a year, they haven't even moved in a range as big as the gap that's happened this morning. So Anyways, what was the news? Like, did they? I don't know. Find a gold reserve?
I think no. I think they might have some other news as far as like a merger or something. They're being bought by Raymond James. So.
Raymond James is buying them. Well, good for Mr. James then. All right. Okay. Well, look, the pre-market action here. I mean, we do have only 256,000 shares traded. Why is my chart acting weird? So not big volume. Despite the huge gap, the volume isn't great. So TSC is not looking fantastic, but I will just leave it there for now since we're a little lacking on the list here. JRJC, another unfamiliar ticker, a Chinese finance company. China Finance Online.
You missed it. You skipped over HX, huh? That's all right. We'll get back to it.
You're right. It jumped in on me. So
that's all right.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
We can do HX.
So HX is a micro float. It's a low float. JRJC that we went to first is a micro. This one's been cranking. Look at that daily, brother.
Yeah, not kidding. Look at that. So yesterday,
I don't see anything new as of this morning.
Right. So this is a continued action. Yesterday seems to have been their best intraday activity, where they really took off midday. So I don't know. Did anybody in the room maybe play HX? I didn't watch it, didn't play it, so I don't know how it moves. right now, pre-market, I mean, we already have 1.5 million shares traded. The pre-market activity actually looks okay. But I don't, I don't have any information. We'll leave it here. All right, so let's go back to JRJC. And before we do that, let me just say for those in the room, the list is a little small. Unfortunately, it's a factor of everything I'm trying to present. I don't have the same tech upgrades that Carlos does. So if you want to see the Gappers list, all of our scanners are still available on the scanners tab. So all I have to do is at the top right of our page, where you might see my name, Peter, just click on that. You'll see the BBT scanners option. You can look at the scanners in more detail for all of our members. So go ahead and do that if you want to get a better view of it. Okay, JRJC. Pre-market 1.2 million shares looks okay, but again, it's another Chinese finance. Like I always, as soon as I hear China at the beginning of it, I get nervous because that means I probably don't know how it's gonna, play during the day.
That and the float is listed on Trade Ideas as 1.38 million.
Ugh.
On FinViz, it's got a whopping 240,000 shares in the float, which is a little high for me.
Yes, massive float, 240,000. I mean, it doesn't even warrant your attention. Yeah, so this is interestingly, the daily though, it's not like it's been making wild moves. Look at this, like no attention whatsoever. Yesterday we had 7.2 million shares traded, and it looks like it made a little bit of movement. Let's take a look. It also jumped during the day, but look at these candles. Yeah, this would have been very difficult to trade. High risk trade there if you're looking to take that out. Oh, and look what we get once a quarter. Especially recently, Crocs jumps onto the list. They must have had earnings.
They did have earnings this morning, and they beat top and bottom. So, this one, like you said, it happens once a quarter when they have earnings. They move. They're on this list.
I don't think I've ever traded them. They always tend to look okay.
They're too ugly, Peter.
What's that?
They're too ugly.
They're too ugly. They're great garage shoes or deck shoes. That's basically all you can use them for.
No.
No? You won't even go there? All right.
No.
I got a pair in my garage. They're easy.
I figured.
All right.
I can see you wearing Crocs.
Yeah? Well,
around the house. I'm not saying like in a suit, like out in public. I can see you as wearing Crocs.
Well, I didn't want to mention my fancy, dress Crocs, but
your dress Crocs. I love it. In your board meetings.
Yeah, my patent leather dress Crocs.
In your Crocs. Yes. There you go.
All right. GH.
Oh, Damien here. Crocs equal birth control. That's pretty accurate.
Ouch. All right. Well, I see how we all feel about Crocs then. GHW is on the list, but just barely. 140,000 shares traded, up 10%. It looks like it's been in play the last week and a half or so, but the pre-market action does not look good on this at all. I don't think I've ever even looked at it. ESS Tech Inc. Again, don't know this company. Market float. Well, the float's not bad, but I don't like the look of it.
I think so. We've got a super chat over on YouTube, and Dan Furyk is saying, if you can guess how old I am today, you're going to have a great trading day. I'm going to guess he's 38 years old because he donated $38 to breast cancer research. So thank you, Dan. Thank you very much.
Dan, thank you for that super chat. We appreciate it. I don't have the
happy birthday.
I don't have the fancy way to bring it in, but there you go. There's Dan on the super chat. So are we right, Dan?
Are you 38?
Is Norm right?
That's all. We'll catch him in just a second.
Yeah, it'll take a second.
We got the delay, so we don't want
to catch up. All right.
No,
well, thank you. That's greatly appreciated.
This GWH, the other concern about GWH is the float shows 69 million on Trade Ideas. That may or may not be accurate. It's a recently de-SPACed. So yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Not great in my eyes.
Right. I understand. All right. The one that just popped onto our list then is...
There he is. So Dan is 38. Look at him.
There you go.
He's a member as well. It's Dan F in the room.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Dan, happy birthday then again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Happy
for the
birthday. Hope you have a great one.
That's awesome. All right.
Go get some Crocs.
Yes. Yeah, there you go. Perfect birthday gift. SHPW, Shapeways Holdings, is on the list. Just squeaked in over 2%, so it just jumped onto the bottom of our list. Pre-market's not looking fantastic. Had a big day yesterday as it jumped from $7 to over 11 and then settled a little bit lower. Normally, do you see any news on this? What's going on?
This one actually just popped up, so I have not had a chance to look at it yet, but let me see what I can find. Recently de-SPACed, Shipways Holdings. Yeah, it looks pretty shippy. Yeah.
You can see
No,
before yesterday.
I don't
Look at the price action, guys. Like nothing was going on. See how flat this was? Like this is terrible. So low volume. Yeah, I don't like the look of this really so far. So not much to write home about here on.
It has to do with 3D printing. This is brand new. I've never seen this before this moment. So
Fair enough.
I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, well, let's leave it there. All right, IBM. So going to the downers, IBM lose some ground. Now IBM is another one that only tends to pop up when we have earnings. So being that I see it drop significantly after the close yesterday, I've got to assume that's the case.
Yep, they had earnings yesterday. Still not trading IBM.
Did they disappoint? Because they're certainly down 5%.
Obviously.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you never know these days because like good earnings doesn't mean the stock goes up. So who knows if bad earnings means you go down? That's.
Their CEO wore Crocs to the earnings call.
He showed up to like the briefing in Crocs, and they're like, "That's it, short it all." Actually, I probably would.
Thank you, Harry.
If he showed up in Crocs.
What's that? For sure. Unless you're a cannabis company, then you're kind of makes sense. Gardening, stoned.
You're setting the boundaries very clearly. All right. Well.
Yes,
all right.
Exactly. Harry, thank you very much. Good friend of the show, Harry. Thank you very much for the $5 super chat over there.
Harry, thank you for that.
Sorry.
Missed a couple of days trading, but
old school way you're doing this.
Carlos looks a lot like Peter. That is not good news for Carlos. Thankfully for him, he doesn't. So, but thank you, Harry, for the $5 super chat. We appreciate it. All right. CAN is the last one I've got here. Only two on the gap down list again. This is just under 2% loss, 160,000 shares. It's not looking fantastic. Every once in a while, Canon Inc. here jumps up onto the list. I'm not a big fan, to be honest. I'm not loving it so far today. Look at that pre-market.
I'm not seeing anything specific. Maybe somebody else has something, but I don't see anything on them. So nothing great. Our gappers list, Peter, excuse my language, but is shit this morning.
Yeah, well, you know what? Some days those are my best trading days, to be honest, when we have nothing on the list, and then because I get to go back to my old standbys like AMD that has been trading pretty well. I've had some good trades on AMD. It's treated me fine. Although yesterday my big trade was not on that. I was trading one of the in-play stuff, but with what the heck was I don't even remember what I traded yesterday. It went up significantly, and then I took it on the drop back. Novavax, thank you. NVAX. See, I can't even remember. All right. Well, anyways, so let's take a look at some of those. So starting with AMD, does not look good pre-market. Really, actually pretty low volume. So we'll just skip over that. Now, people are mentioning Tesla. Tesla did, look at a lot of price action after the close yesterday, but it sort of bopped up and down and then settled, pretty much sort of back to where it closed. So it is down 1%, 300,000 shares. Not huge volume for a day after earnings. So I didn't actually have a chance to read their earnings, but I assume, they didn't say anything earth-shattering because, not a lot of people are trading it this morning.
I actually would disagree. I think they had some pretty good news on that earnings, and they had like just amazing sales and profitability. From what I saw in a couple of brief headlines yesterday, maybe I'm incorrect, but maybe this is a diamond in the rough right now.
Yeah, it could be. Now, it's also, they did pre-announce their sales numbers earlier, which could mean that it's already baked in, because look at how it's gone up over the last few days here. When it broke 800, I thought we were going to break 900 yesterday, but it didn't get that close, frankly, and then broke back down. So yeah, you could be right, Norm. Tesla, you just never know, right? With Tesla, I mean, if you're okay with the volatility it brings, then it could be a good trader almost every day. I know Tiffany tends to always keep an eye on it and can trade it very expertly. So if you're good with Tesla, we'll keep it on the list. We'll set some levels. Apple is the other one that's been a sort of a consistent mover, not necessarily where I expect it personally, but yesterday very choppy at the open. It was definitely an avoid at the open, but then it sort of set up and gave some good moves. If you look around 1 o'clock, 1:30, it gave a great double bottom. This is the type of setup that I like to see, and then rose back to VWAP. So Apple, is one to always keep an eye on. For everybody else in the room and on YouTube, what are you watching? What else should we take a look at? Because as Norm said, our list is a little sparse. Pins. So Pins had some news midday yesterday that they were potentially going to be bought by PayPal for about $70 a share. As you can see, look what happened, right? The thing that spiked up and then sort of leveled out for the rest of the day and into the post market. Right now we have just under 1 million shares, but it hasn't created any big motion. So unless Pins, it might be worth watching, but it's one of those where I think it's only going to move if there's another piece of news, right? Either PayPal denying the purchase,
I agree, or
confirming that they're buying it but change the price. It's got to be something like that that's going to move it, because otherwise Pinterest is not a great. It doesn't really move that great on its own without a news catalyst. So good idea though.
Well, Mike brings up a good point here. Take a look at PayPal.
Yeah. PayPal,
because maybe PayPal does have a catalyst on that, and they dropped on it, and they could still move. Usually acquired companies, even rumored acquisitions, are going to peg that price and just sit there. PayPal might fall out of the bed this morning.
Yeah, so, and for everyone that, if you might be new to the markets, as Norm points out, this is exactly what typically happens when you get these announcements. So notice I've got the two different charts now up on the screen. Pins at the bottom. So when it was announced that they were going to be acquired, their stock shoots up. At the exact same time almost, PayPal, which is the acquirer's stock, drops significantly. And that's often what happens, right? The company that's making the acquisition drops because they're spending cash, and usually, people are worried that they're going to be overpaying. It's always the same story. So sometimes it'll level out very quickly. Here you can see that Pins kept the gains and PayPal kept the loss. So you're right, PayPal might be the better play today because it just generally moves a little bit better. So far this morning, though,
all right,
nothing much going on. All right, so what else have you guys got? I see a couple people mentioning AAL.
Well, we've got another birthday. Now we've started something. So Mojancito over on YouTube, $22 is his daughter's birthday. I'm guessing she's 16. No, 22. That is my guess. Sticking with it.
Let's see.
Don't get her Crocs. She won't like it. Thank you very much.
I got to get all these in here. All right, hold on a sec.
Guys that mentioned they can't see the list in the room, you can switch to the other tab. You'll be able to see the list over there perfectly clearly. Either that, or you can always zoom in the chat room itself, and you can see it.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for that, Norm.
Check.
Yeah, and I apologize. I know it is small. It's a little hard to read. So yeah, $22 for their daughter's birthday. You know what, guys? Thank you so much. It means a lot to us, and we match those donations.
Happy birthday.
If anybody wants to wish happy birthday to their 90-year-old grandmother, feel free to do that too. So that'd be great. All right. Okay, so AAL was the other thing. I see people mentioning it. It looks sort of okay so far, pre-market. I don't know. Unless there's something specific going on, I wouldn't really put it on my
They have
list.
earnings, don't they?
I don't know. I feel like
They had earnings this morning. I haven't looked it up. Yeah, they have earnings this morning.
Okay.
Loss narrower than expected. Just reading a couple of headlines here. I have not looked over the earnings in depth. They just came out a little bit ago. So.
And I see that. So yeah, they just narrowly beat on sales and narrowly lost less money than expected. So so they're up narrowly as a result.
That's what I tell my wife about trading.
What's that?
I lost less money. I lost less money than expected.
Well done. Proud of you, honey. All right.
It's like I saved you money.
Snap. People are saying Snap. Now, Snap is one that I usually like to avoid. I used to try to trade Snap, and it never turned out well for me. So far, nothing happening pre-market. Only 30,000 shares. If they have earnings, then maybe that'll create a result. Let's see. They did have earnings. They narrowly beat top and bottom line, it looks like. But so far, nobody cares, because Snap is not going anywhere. So, all right, so we're getting a slightly bigger list. Let me flip over to YouTube.
Did we rewind to like August or something? What the hell is going on this list? We've had a good list for the last week, Peter, and this morning we come in and it's just your luck.
Yeah,
it's a lot harder to do there's two times it's really difficult to do the pre-market show. Well, 2020 when the list was 50 tickers long on one side or the other, or both sides some days, every day. And then when everything is garbage.
Yeah.
And
When you get all these tickers,
this is the latter.
That I don't know. That's not very happy. There's a couple other things jumping on the list, but guys, I don't know that it's anything that's worth reviewing, frankly. I'll just pick off of YouTube. Somebody mentioned Bubba. Bubba actually has been sort of in play the last couple of weeks with all the news out of China. That being said, I personally struggle to trade Bubba. It does not follow the same patterns that I like, so I just generally avoid it. So far this morning, 300,000 shares, which is actually a little bit low to normal, I would say, for Bubba. It's only up like nothing, 0.06%. So nothing so far to really write home about on that ticker. So with that, why don't we let's skip over and see if I can get things going so we can do our announcements. And that it's going to be.
I don't know that there's an updated announcements. I was out at the beginning of the week, but if you go to the webinars page, we can pull up the website, show everybody that.
Yep. Oh, sorry. I realized.
Hop over. We'll just hit that.
Doing that live. There we go.
All right. So, guys, if you ever have any question about what we have coming up, you can always go to bearbulltraders.com/webinars. It's going to show you what we have coming up. So next Tuesday, we've got Andrew talking about how to trade opening range breakouts. Of course, his number one strategy and what we watch him trade all the time. And then the week after, we're going to have Kyle doing important metrics to journal, both of those 8 p.m. on Tuesday. And you're drawing. I feel bad because I don't know where Andrew is right now. You just put a mustache on him. I don't know if he's in customs jail or what, unable to get into the country. But Andrew was supposed to be on the floor of the NYSE today, and unfortunately, our genius government would not allow him entry in because he was in Europe less than 14 days ago. So, poor guy, I don't know where he is. Hope he's doing all right.
Yeah, hopefully he's. I think the last picture, it looked like he was at a bar somewhere, wasn't it? So, anyways,
I don't know.
He'll find a place.
All right, and then next week on Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, we have Andrew Mineker talking about techniques to improve your trading psychology. this is a new guest we have. So, no, just you don't have the thing, so I will quickly go through it. All the super chats.
I think I can do that for you. Hold on a sec.
All right. I'm just going to start running. You catch up when you get a chance, because I know it from memory. I've done it so many times. There you go. If you want to participate in the member trade of the day, trade of the week, take a screenshot of your best trade of the day, put as much commentary as you can on it, post on Twitter, tag at Bearable Traders, at MikeB_BBT, and at NormBBT. Also use a hashtag BBT Family Day Trading and Stock Market. We'll pick the best trade of the day and post and announce it in the room and on Twitter. And then all those trades today are eligible for Trade of the Week, which is voted on by the team over the weekend and announced on Monday. If you are watching on YouTube and haven't been in the chat, go to bearabletraders.com, scroll about halfway down the page. You'll see a Test Drive Now button. You can click that and then use the promo code PreMarket24. That'll get you a discount off the intro membership. It does not recur. It just bills you one time. You can spend a week in the room, see if it's a good fit. And it also gives you access to the onboarding classes each and every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, live. Also, if you'd like to become an elite member and get access to all the webinars, past, future, and present, use the promo code FALL40 to get 40% off the annual elite membership. Yes, I do sound like the terms and conditions guy this morning, don't I? Well, I was up late last night. A neighbor of mine invited me out last night, and I was out later than I should have been. So I'm a little tired today.
Yeah, party. Yeah. Well, you know what? You got to take advantage of those, right? That's the joy of trading.
Yes.
You know, you're not feeling it, then you don't trade. That's all good. All right. Okay, well, let's go then and set some levels, guys. This should be relatively fast, as a lot of this stuff is not fantastic. I pretty much kept everything on the list since we have some time to set levels. I just added DWAC. Somebody's mentioning that it was going like wildfire. I'm not sure I would call this wildfire. Look at these tiny little candles. It's moving, but it's moving sort of remarkably slowly, especially being 25 million shares deep in pre-market, and it also looks like a recent IPO. I don't know what if there's news on it. And you're right, my list. Sorry, that's something that I forgot to do. Let me change the font size so you guys can actually see the list. There, maybe that's better. Now you can see the list. Okay, all right. So DWAC, I got no levels to set. It's an IPO. There's nothing happening up at this level. The only thing I would keep an eye on if you are thinking of trading it is that on the very first day it set a high of 1733. So this thing's only at $12 now. So if it gets back there, then keep an eye on it. Otherwise, you know what? Not. I don't know. It just looks weird to me. So, yeah, not good for me. All right. TSC we had on our list. It is jumping up to, let's check and see. Is this all-time highs? No, it is not. All right, so that gives us some levels back here. 2018, it apparently was trading this high, and it set a high 30, 10, 30. 10. Look at this. 3 different days it bounced off of $30.10. So that is absolutely a place we're going to put a level that we want to watch. If you're going to try and trade TSC, you've got to be aware of that 30-10 level. So I'll put it right there. And then on the downside, look at the downside of this consolidation range. I'm going to put a level there too, because I'd want to watch if it breaks below that. Notice right now it's trading in between those two levels. So that sets an upward and a lower bound as to what I would watch for on this TSC stock if it's something you're looking to trade. JRJC, which is on our list again, almost 2 million shares traded now. Daily's pushing down here, but it's gapping up a little bit. So far, pre-market doesn't look fantastic. If I was to set levels, let's see. Let's go to the current price. Well, look at this. We are pulling up past where this gap was. So unfortunately, we've missed the opportunity on this gap. If you were watching this and noticed that, it always trade in the direction of the gap. Jared was talking about this in our chat room yesterday. So if you're not a member, you would have missed that. But Jared actually gave us a good detailed description of how he trades the gap. And he took a great trade off the open, trading against Andrew, but because he saw the gap, and it really gave him a great opportunity. I can't remember what stock that was. I'm sure you guys in the room remember that, but he made a fantastic trade, and it was Bubba? Okay. And played the trend on it. So anyway, but we're past the gap now. So right now you got to watch on the top side, pretty much exactly where the price is now at $9. And then I would go up higher and maybe somewhere around here where it looked like it had some resistance, although these big wicks put that into question, somewhere around $11. Moving on to HX, again, look at, it's been a mover over the last few days, and unless I've got some history, oh, we do, look at this. So this stock has obviously had a rough time. Let's go back here to 2018 again, where look, this is an area where the price had consolidated for the good 6 months. So yeah, that may give us some interesting opportunity. I'm going to put a level at the top of this candle. This is sort of despite the wicks in it, this is where there was a gap forming like we were just talking about. The open here, 32.25. And I just lost my scanners. So that is an area to watch. But more immediately into the price action, I would probably watch down here at where this candle spiked, low of 21 exactly. So that's definitely a place that I would keep an eye on if you're going to try and trade HX. Our good friend Crocs, the most stylish shoes on the block, is up like we mentioned. I would be looking at this. What is the current price here? What? I'm obviously at the wrong part. Wow, look at that. $152. Okay, so we have been higher than this. For support, I would look down here at 147.30-ish. I'll put a level there. And then at the high, well, we're going to mark this, which has got to be the all-time high. 163.18. I know Norm is going to be investing heavily in this. So it's bound to go up. So anyways, keep an eye on Crocs if you're interested in trading it. SHPW, big day yesterday. Like we said, now it's at the high end of that range. God, look at this terrible daily chart. Not a lot to write home. Let's check and see. So we have no history. It only goes back here to the end of 2019. So I got no levels to set. All you can do is watch yesterday's high and see what happens. This here might be an indicator, high of 1079 on the low side. It might get some support if it comes down. That happens to be where it closed yesterday, or roughly where it closed yesterday too. So obviously a level to keep an eye on here as support for today. IBM, as we mentioned, had earnings. I already have a level set here at 143.04. You can see I like that. I will leave it. I'm going to set another level up here at the top, roughly 144.80. But we are gapping down, so look at where it bounced from previously. Down here with a low of 132.94. And then a spike low on the day before of 132.78. So that would be an area I would absolutely be watching if continued weakness is shown in IBM. You know, as Norm said, he doesn't like to trade it, and I don't blame him. I have traded it occasionally, but frankly, it's never really treated me all that well. So you would have to start putting in some exceptional pattern signals for me to want to take a trade on it. All right, moving on to Tesla. Well, Tesla, as we know, has been on a run upwards for the last few days. However, that may have peaked. You can see I've got a bunch of levels already set on my chart from having watched it before. I'm going to leave those levels. You can see them here, hopefully, at 828, 838, and then above the price. 877.77 was one I was absolutely watching with intent, as that was close to the high here was set, and it coincided with a high from previous days. So but right now, you know, I'm honestly expecting this to be much of an inside day. The only option would be maybe it'll fill this gap. Remember, we talked about gaps to the downside. This is not a big gap for Tesla. So what is the low here? 851.47. And then the high of the previous day was 843.21. So I will throw some levels in there because that may be an area to watch if it goes into the gap. But I said, like, whoops, my other level didn't go to 851.47. That's not a huge gap for Tesla, so it's not as significant as a gap would be on other stocks. So I have AMD because I like it, but not much to do with it today. Apple, as we mentioned, has been in play. I've got a previous level I set back because it was set back here in August the 16th of 151.20 was the high. I was actually looking forward to hit that yesterday, and it didn't get that close. So yesterday was a pretty lackluster day overall. I said the open especially was terrible. So be careful if you're trading Apple. Don't rush into it. Wait for it to give you appropriate signals before you take a trade. But so far this morning, nothing special. I don't know what to expect on Apple. Pins and PayPal, like we mentioned, are linked. Pinterest is up. If I look at the daily, well, we gapped up into this big area of the gap, midday yesterday. So again, like I've been saying consistently, we'll mind the gap, right? So the low here was 66.17. I'm going to put a level there so that I can keep an eye on that. And then I'm going to put another one up here because this is an interesting little pattern where it came down, found some support, tried to move up, and then look at the failure. That would have been a quarter ago, right? So last quarterly earnings, it saw a gap down. So the low here is 70.35. I'm going to make sure my level is right at 70.35. I don't know whether to expect it to be there. Certainly with an acquisition price of 70, I don't expect it to get higher than that, right? In fact, it probably won't get within $2 of it, but we'll see what happens today. Like, it's all news dependent. Here, after the gap down, it tried to move upwards a little bit over the course of the day, and 60.88 was about as close as it got for that and the next week. So I'm going to set a level here actually at 60.90. And we'll see what happens on pins. PayPal is on the other side as the acquirer. We can see yesterday it had sort of that big motion before recovering a little bit. I will obviously watch the low of yesterday as well as the low here from October the 4th, which is 251.59. Just make sure my level is set accurately. There we go. And on the high side, well, I've got the high of the previous couple of days to keep me honest. AAL, like we mentioned, had earnings, but not doing much so far. While the earnings, I think, were a modest beat, if I remember. The stock is, it's up 0.8%. It might move up a little bit, but geez, this little range, it's got to get up above this level that I set previously, actually, 2043, for me to get really excited about it. Otherwise, I would expect it to sort of chop within this area here. So I'll just leave AAL at that because the highs and lows of the previous couple of days are already setting levels for me to watch. Snapchat was mentioned, and again, daily, again, look at the solid range we've been in, between 70 and $80 roughly, right? So a $10 range that this has not moved out of. So far this morning, it's not showing any indication it has an interest in getting out of that range with only 39,000 shares traded. Again, highs and lows of the previous couple of days really set ranges for me to look at. Despite earnings, this could be an inside day for Snap. So, again, probably not going to make my list. DWAC was the last one we had already talked about. All right, so that's the list. Oh, the Snap earnings are only after the close? All right, thank you for that then. So people were watching it in advance of earnings. Well, that would explain why it's doing nothing so far. And thank you again for that, Jennifer. So for my list, guys, I might keep an eye on HX, only being that it's had such a big move. I know it's a Chinese stock, so it may prove problematic for me, but I might keep an eye on that. Maybe just to annoy Norm, I'll watch Crocs. And I probably will not watch IBM, to be honest, but I will keep an eye on what I've been watching recently. Tesla, AMD, Apple, and PayPal are going to make my list. Normally, what we would do now is we would take a look at our the list from our moderators. Let's see if I can do that. I would also normally be posting my the IPOs and SPACs for today, the special purpose acquisition vehicles, basically everything that's opening today. We do have quite a few things that are opening. So I will post those for all of our members in the room a little bit later. Wow, we do have actually a pretty big list this morning of stuff that's supposed to be opening. So I'll have to get to that. And for our members in the room, let's see if I cannot pull that list up. Where? There it is. Let's see. I think our moderators were a couple of minutes early, so they're only getting their lists in here as we are talking. So let me give them a moment to do that, and I will bring the window over. All right, you guys see that? Might be a little small again. Hopefully you can see that. All right, let's take a look. Some announcements in the room. Simon is watching a couple of things. Mara, which is not something we looked at. Bitcoin was in the news. You know, I found it interesting this morning when I went to the gym. You know, they were talking in the business news about Bitcoin quite extensively. So, you know, it's interesting when it hits all-time highs. You know, it gets a little more air coverage, and that creates legitimacy, which creates acceptance, which, you know, is I guess good for Bitcoin in the long run, but we'll see what happens. But anyways, it's certainly in the news. So he's watching Mara with some key levels. Wish, another one we're not looking at, CCL and Uber. So Simon's done his own list, and I love that, right? He knows what he's looking for. He's looking for specific levels. He's going to trade off of those. Dima is watching Apple, AAL, and PINs. Tiffany will be watching Tesla, Crocs, PINs, and TSC. Eamon is going to be looking for IBM and CCL as longs, and Wish and CAN as shorts. And Jared just came in with his list with Tesla, PINs and PayPal, the Bitcoin miners we were just talking about. So SOS, Hive, and Mara are the ones that he's primarily going to keep an eye on. And then Tilray. Tilray is an interesting one because the pot stocks definitely had some movement earlier this week. You can see here 2 days ago, on Tuesday, they had a big jump, but then, frankly, didn't follow it up with much. Yesterday was not a great day. You know, they could move, they could not. So far this morning, you know, they're not moving significantly. If I look at Tilray or CGC, ACB, that's the other one. Those are the ones I tend to go to, so none of them are really moving very significantly so far this morning. All right, guys. That is our list and what we're doing. Thank you so much for allowing me to be with you here this morning in the pre-market show. Carlos should be back tomorrow, and you'll get back to regular schedule. Keep in mind, we do not have Engineering the Markets, so the pre-market show will start at 8:30, and will go until about this time. So thank you so much for joining us again. If you can give us a thumbs up, we love that. That is very helpful to the channel and to all of our members. And thank you to everybody in the room who I talk to all day, every day. I'll be back talking with you guys in just a couple of minutes. And then, of course, this afternoon, we always have music, fun, some trading, and we'll see what the day brings us. Trade safe out there. As Norman Carlos always say, right? You don't want to make a trade that you're going to have to go and regret. Stick to your strategies. Only trade when it makes sense, and you will have a good day. Take care, everybody. We will see you again tomorrow.